Well, thank you for clicking your way back to the good old and currently very muddy Southern IA. We're going to be back in the mud today, and well, I've already been in it. Since today was Sunday, I was just kind of thinking, oh, I'll just go into work for a little bit. It'll be kind of work by myself, put in a few risers, and take it kind of easy. And well, the first thing I thought I would do is try and dig some of that silt out of the pond, get it thrown up onto the banks, let it dry out. That way I could work the dirt, make the banks nice again. And I ended up in a little bit of a pickle. Bottom there. There is no bottom there. If you guys are wanting to see the rest of that getting pulled out of the mud, you'll have to wait until the end of the video. But anyways, luckily my dad showed up, saved my butt, drugged me up out of the ground. We went and laid out a couple more terraces that we're going to do onto this job here. And then about when we got done with that, Steve called me and said, hey, let's put some pipe in the ground. So Steve's made his way back over here this afternoon. I just pulled the excavator over here where we're going to put the last run in at. He's walking to the back where the trencher got parked after we got rained out the other day. I'm going to run up here, grab a double wall, wait for him to show up, then we'll get started. Today I will be giving away a sticker, which you also do have a chance to win a sticker. All you have to do is be my favorite comment within the first 24 hours of the video being posted. You want to race? Speed is one thing that thing does not have. Oh, and yesterday, if you can tell, there's no more teeth on this bucket. I put the ditching edger on it. First time I've ever dug with it. I'm pretty happy with that. Steve said he'd give us a quick rundown here since we were getting questions in the last YouTube video about how this machine works and all the parts of it and how it keeps grading everything. So once we get a chance here in a little bit, we'll walk through it. So what we're doing here is just backing it down into the hole that I just cut. Steve will start the trencher up the hill a little bit, put a little groove into the bottom of that start there. We'll feed the tile in, and then we'll make the double wall connection, and then we can start up on the run.
That'll do it. When this lays in the bottom of this trench, a pocket for it is going to lay in, and it's supported on these two sides right here.
And that's what will keep it from
right, and
oblonging real quick.
Right, and as you put a larger pipe in, then the pipe starts up these walls. So an 8-inch tile lays like this, clear up on it's supported on both of these sides.
And off and up the hill we go. Set the Hickenbottom riser that will let the water go down that the terrace collects.
Shovel sure is handy down in there.
Oh man, I use this little shovel more than any of them.
And there was a comment that my tile machine wasn't very fast, even on fast when you was running it fast. The old goer is a pretty handy little tool.
Here's a sneak peek of a video to come. You'll see what this is for in a second. What we're doing is laying out the pattern tile, and so that it looks professionally done, and it kind of is professionally done, and we have straight paths going through here, and we're going to do it on 30-foot centers. I'm going to use this compass here, which is Ag Leader's basic model. I mean, I literally have it plugged into the cigarette lighter, and I just stuck it to the tailgate back there, the receiver, and within a matter of 10 minutes I'm up and going. What I'm going to do is just create a guidance path, 30 feet. I'm going to use a straight AB line. 0 degrees is directly north, 90 degrees is directly east, so we're just going to tap this here. We're going to type in 90, which it's already actually in there. Then, oh boom, we've got a 90-degree heading here with a light bar on top, and we are setting on a tile run that we've already done. So now essentially we can mark out 30 feet as we head to the south, and it'll be on 30-foot centers. This goofy bad stuff. Start. Should I put a flag here or just drive down and start at the flags at the end?
Put a flag here.
Here, flag here?
Yeah, that's our termination.
So we're 3 feet. 3, 2, 1, 3 inches, 1 foot. That's pretty dang close for me.
That's close enough.
Yeah. Like we can do this. And I'll say that we're going to run. Gets us to, we're gonna have to go around this stuff. Directly behind us there. The other thing we can look at here is as we're doing these runs, we can kind of get a snapshot of the elevation. Right here we've got elevation currently at 1017 or about 1018 right there, and then at the other end of the field we can look at that again and then see how many feet of fall we have from this end, or from that end to this end. elevation 1021. Now this is using LOST GPS. How accurate that is within a certain distance, I can't answer that. So there's not like RTK correction with a base field in the field here, or a base in the field here. So, but that gives us kind of an idea if we have fall. We've got things kind of laid out here, so we'll give you kind of equipment tour of what we've been using to put this pipe in the ground. We'll show you everything real quick. The most neat thing by far is Steve's trencher here, which is, I'll let Steve tell you about it.
Well, folks, I'll start right here at the front. First, we got a Tulsa winch on the front. We use that just about every tile run we do, especially when it's this wet. We get out on some decent going, you never use it. It's mechanically driven from the back, and I'll show you where that is. And we go back. We had to make a little modification because sometimes you don't get done when the sun goes down. So we put a headlight that I had off of an old Freightliner semi. For you gearheads, this is a 2-stroke cycle Detroit Jimmy Screamer engine. Now they were very popular in the 60s and in the 70s. It's kind of noisy. It being a 2-stroke, it sounds like it's running twice as fast as it really is. As you can see, this machine is a spiker trencher. They're still made today. We can still get some parts for them, but many of the parts we have on this machine were parts of the time. This machine was, the front end, for instance, is 1.5 deuce, an Army 1.5 deuce truck. That's where the front end for this came. Now we'll go back. 4-speed manual transmission. The clutch is cabled up here on the back of the engine. And the next big yellow piece we have here, that's the 4-wheel drive unit out of a 1.5 deuce. So when we put it in 4-wheel drive, that's what drives the ditching wheel. Now coupled behind that 4-wheel drive gearbox are 3 4-speed transmissions that are from front to back. Now you'll notice the middle transmission. Can you see that down in there? There on the middle transmission you'll see a PTO drive. That PTO drive is what drives the winch on the front. Now as we come back on the machine, we have another little modification here. We have big chains on the back that need oil. And if you're running this machine and you're walking around with oil cans, it's not a safe condition. So we MacGyvered us a little bit of a bucket that we put our oil in, and then we have a couple of valves on the side. It's just a matter of turn the valve every once in a while and watch your chains get oiled good and turn the valve back off. That, I'll tell you, that's considerably better than walking around with an oil bucket. So then we get back to the back here. We have all the gear shifts that run the transmission. This is the back transmission. This transmission has the PTO drive that drives the winch, and then they have 2 more transmissions. This is the main transmission between the engine and the power divider. So this is the transmission that dictates your wheel speed, because after this transmission, these have no effect on the wheel. So then you come to the wheel, and we have these big nasty chains that we try to keep oiled because they're expensive. And then I think you can probably see the gearbox in there that runs those big chains. That's a Detroit gearbox out of an Army 1.5 deuce. And if you look down below that, you see the gearbox that runs the ground propulsion. That's the same. It's a Detroit locker for you gearheads that's in that bottom transmission. So then the top transmission that runs the chains, turn the big wheel, and that's done with a sprocket. Now, I think you can get up in there and see the
right
big
there.
sprocket right in there. That's called the #1 pinion, and those teeth then will fit into the segments that you see on the side of the wheel. There
Right
you
in
go.
between these.
Now, this cross conveyor is hydraulically driven off of a hydrostatic pump off the front of the machine, and it's controlled by this lever right here, so you can go forward and reverse at varied speeds. And you see I've got a little light on here. That little light, it tells me when I have the PTO in gear for that winch on the front, so when I disengage it, I know I'm out of the system.
Which, if you saw that shop video where I used his pit to change the oil and showed off his pit that he's got, we kind of joked at the end of it is that he bought a bunch of zip ties when we were doing the job for my dad probably a month or so ago now. We were getting ready to do a pretty long run. I don't know how many feet we put in that day, but we either got into a stick or something, and his belt was pretty well worn out, and we were going to quit for the day, and I kind of said zip tie it together, and we zip tied it, zip stitched it, or Steve zip stitched it together with these zip ties here, and we went up the hill with some serious footage. But it's been recently replaced before we started this job.
Yeah. The other thing that we've replaced are the side cutters. The side cutters help to make the ditch wide enough that we can work around in it, and it doesn't drag so much on the boot. Now the boot is what lives in the bottom of the trench as you tile. The cables on the top, actually the boot itself completely sets in the bottom with no cables holding it up. The depth then is dictated by this cylinder right here that we see that goes up to the top. That dictates the depth when you're setting in there. Now you'll notice a little shop reel light up there. Well, the light died one day, and it was time to didn't have a use for it, so we mounted it on the tile machine, so now we can have lights in the boot when we get stuck in the dark. And we did over there at your dad's project too.
And someone was asking us how this is kept grade, I guess you can say. Most of the runs that we're doing, we're going up the hill. Today we had a little bit of a challenge of one. It's got enough fall to it that it's really not that hard to keep grade without a laser. We will be using a laser for the pattern tile, but it just has this slope right here on the back of the boot, and you can keep track of what slope you've got going up the hill. Steve does a great job of it.
Right, because that slope gauge is set parallel to the bottom of the boot. So we know by looking at the slope gauge what kind of shape the bottom of the trench is. Now if you could walk back behind here. As we trench, these ears stick out and dig a little dirt that lands down on the tile to help hold it in place. And as the tile is being placed, we have an antique planter wheel that we can ride up and down, and that holds the tile in place while the dirt's being placed on it.
And we raise and lower. You probably have seen me messing with it here. It's just on this chain right here, round a lever, raise it up in the air as we put it through there, and then it just uses plenty of weight to push down into the trench before it hits the dirt that gets laid on top of it by the crummer.
Now another item with this that's modified on this machine was built in the mid to early 60s, and at that time clay tile was the tile of choice. In fact, that was before plastic tile. And if you notice the trench on the bottom of the boot, we have a spatial rounded bottom with flattened sides that give it any tile you have will lay in there and be supported on the sides, and this is the guide that the old clay tile would ride down on. So our plastic tile rides down on this. The wheel then attaches it into the bottom of the transmission and into the bottom of the ditch, and then the bedders put dirt on it right behind. And that, my friends, is how the old Spiker 60 puts the tile on the ground.
The other things that we have been using is the John Deere with tile reel carts. You saw those in one of the videos. It's just how you can unreel the tile nice and easily. Sometimes Steve's tile cart seems to work better than my dad's tile cart. My dad's tile cart likes to get tile underneath the reel and cause headaches. Steve has his backhoe here. We haven't been digging in with the backhoe. He can dig in with the backhoe. He does dig in with the backhoe when he's doing his projects. Mainly that's here now as an anchor for the situations like we talked about on the winch, having the winch up the hill. If that wasn't here, we'd have to be using, which will be the next piece of equipment, this Sumitomo or I don't know what the heck, it's some Japanese deal of an excavator. So this has just been an anchor basically, and we've been using this to set the double walls, and you can backfill with it and a lot of things with it. Works pretty slick with that blade on it. It's a good little blue machine. Now before we go all wild and crazy, we also have to talk about the equipment in the back of this goer here. Obviously we've been using the goer. The goer gets us around, keeps the parts in the back of here. We can refill it with the runs that we're gonna need. Works pretty darn good. We have a tape measure. Tape measure tells you how far away we need to be from things. You need a survey tape measure. We've got the level. You need a level. The level will tell you how straight up and down you are on your Hickenbottom risers, and then also if you have any questions about your double wall slope, you can check it on this. Someone commented in the last video about the short shovel. Short shovel is worth its weight in gold. I use this thing way more than anything else. Works great because then you're down there, you can actually get on your knees, dig stuff off. Works fantastic. The Sawzall is obviously very muddy. We use this to cut all the pipes and connections, otherwise you're doing it by hand. I haven't used or made one of those tile cutters that people have that you just push through the tile. That looks like it worked pretty darn good. This with a long blade has been working fantastic for us. We've got another type of shovel. We've just got a spade in here. The spade works, it doesn't get used quite as much. Someone asked about zip ties versus the tape. This is a special type of tape. It's actually called tile tape. I don't really know how to describe it, but it's almost like electrical tape except for better. It really holds onto this plastic and actually forms the plastic really darn well. I trust that stuff to go into the ground. Then you got another shovel. There's actually another special shovel that we've been using. Steve actually introduced me to this type of shovel, and then I turned around and went and bought one of them, and I don't know where it is right now. It might be actually in the shop, otherwise you guys be seeing me use it. This here, well, that's just a long shafted spade shovel. This here is called a crummer shovel. It's actually kind of got a foot bill on it, and this works really good for just slicing. I told Austin I called it like cutting off of a block of cheese. You don't really dig with this one, you just kind of push into the ground like that, and then you can flop it off, and it leaves you a nice little trench where you can cut a grade just with the shovel. Works fantastic. Highly recommend one of those if you're wanting to do any type of tile laying or pipe laying. You can cut a nice flat bottom. Steve didn't talk about, but the biggest pipe that Steve can lay is 10-inch, right?
12.
You can lay 12? We haven't laid any 12 yet, have we? We haven't laid any 12. 10's the biggest pipe that we've laid. And up to 5-inch, you can take 6 over the side, can't you?
Yes.
You can take 6 just over the side like you guys have seen today. Everything else has to go up and over the top of the trencher. Before I show you guys the rest of the equipment we're using on this job here, I got to give away a sticker. So this sticker comes from the first video that came out on this project, where my buddy Austin, who's never done this type of projects before and he's actually a contractor, came out here, helped me out, did a fantastic job.
Tile goes into bathrooms and kitchens.
But this sticker goes to Mike Dillon. Mike says, that's one thing that I admire about you guys that are farmers. The running theme I always hear is stewardship of the land, or taking care of it of this so that the soil stay where they are and can still grow crops on it in the future. That kind of thinking is what, hold on, I gotta do the read more bit, is what makes me admire you a great deal. And you know, in every situation there's maybe some farmers that are bad eggs, but the majority of us really like to take care of our ground, and we're really proud of our farms. This farm is my farm. At 28 years old, I plan on farming this farm for the rest of my life, and maybe the next generation can take over this farm. And doing these projects are very expensive, you know. Maybe I can go over that. It's like, I could have gotten a boat or something instead of putting plastic pipe underneath the ground. But you have to take care of the land. The way that I see it is that the land to farmers is the golden goose. We have to take care of the golden goose. That way it can continue to produce for us years after years after years. And the only way to do that is through good stewardship practices. And now good stewardship practices is an interpretation of what you might seem to be the right thing. Good stewardship practices, the views of that has changed over the years, but right now, in my opinion, and from what I see, is that if you can control your runoff and have good control of the water that crosses across your fields, that's a good thing to do, and that's why I'm taking care of it this early into my life and career. So thank you, Mike, and everybody else that commented. Send me an email and I'll send you a sticker, and don't forget, you can win one in this video. Let's finish out the little bit of an equipment tour here. We have another tractor. Tractors don't really matter in this situation. You just need something to pull these carts. They all have their own power sources, which is a 12-volt electric over hydraulic pump, which tilts the trailers and stuff. But these are what the tile cart reels are like. The tile reel goes on there, spins. The brake's on this one, so it's not going to spin right now. But that's how you can lay out the tile in an efficient manner. The next gal that we've been using is the skid steer here. Probably not the most crucial piece of equipment that we're using on these jobs. Works really good for doing backfilling. I can backfill with this faster than I can anything else. If I have the pallet forks on it, I can run around with tile reels on it. Works great. This will get more used for when we go to start pushing the terraces up. That's what it'll mainly get used for. Everything's just covered in mud. It's been one of those projects. And then the last thing getting used, and actually I forgot one. I forgot the tile probe. I'll show you guys the tile probe too. The last thing gonna get used, or I guess did get used, is my dad's dozer here. He obviously used it to pull me up out of the mud today, which you guys will see after the credits. It's a Komatsu 65EX with a ripper on the back of it. My dad's a master operator of this thing. He can move some dirt, me not so much. I'm more in the skid steers and excavators, even though Brad doesn't think I can get a full bucket of dirt. And to finish this out here, this here is the tile probe. It's just a long shaft with a ball on the end of it. You stick it through the ground, punctures the dirt, hits the tile, stops it, and then you can find your tile. That's why you're probing for dirt. So thank you guys again for hanging out with us here today. It's been an adventurous of a day, I can tell you that much. We got more done than I thought I would for a Sunday. Coming up real soon, we'll be actually doing field work. My dad actually did some tillage here a little bit later last week. So, and hydrous ammonia is going to be going on, field work, planting. Planting's 7 days away. So, see you guys in the next one. good news is I think I got up and above my double wall.